A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to the Pink Room for a very interesting presentation on Google Cloud and Clarence, who are delivering Europe's first sovereign cloud. So it's really about innovation. I will show you how Clarence, Proximus, and Google together have created innovation in Europe. Just a quick check. I hope all of you can actually hear me. So if you can just give me a thumbs up if that's working. Otherwise, I may be looking a bit silly there. And I'd like to introduce you to my two co-presenters, Kurt Rommens, Head of Government and Public Sector BeNeLux for Google Cloud, here with us today, and Jean-Pierre Faber, Director, Commission de Surveillance du Secteur Financier du Luxembourg, or in short, CSSF. We have the pleasure to have our first customer with us here in the room. So you can hear from first hand what their experience is with this innovative solution. Unfortunately, Pascal Rogist, the general manager of Clarence, is not with us today. His mother passed away yesterday, so he asked me to stand in for him. My name is Joris Duysens. I'm responsible for the cloud business at Proximus Next from a commercial perspective, and also a board member of, proud board member of Clarence. So we'll start with explaining from Google side what is this solution. Secondly, I'll explain what Clarence is and what we do with the solution, and we will end up with CSSF explaining us how they use this solution. So with that, I hand over to Kurt.
Yep. Thank you so much. Great to be here. Thank you also for being with big numbers in this room. It's always great to see that if you talk about sovereignty these days, it really triggers a lot of things. And I try to give you a little bit of overview of what Google Cloud is doing in this space, because of course you have seen that you cannot turn a page, you cannot have a conversation without the words AI, sovereign GPUs, and everything around that element. And so what I want to do in a few minutes is to explain you exactly how Google is looking at that new reality, the new world that we're all facing in this room, right? That's a little bit the point that I will raise today. Maybe just to check, it's still morning and there was already some keynotes and everything, but just as an opener, who saw the news of NVIDIA, or maybe a better question, who has stocks of NVIDIA? Just raise your hands. And that's the reason why you're all laughing. That's great to see. Then maybe shifting, who has stocks from Google? All right. Still a lot of people smiling. And just a matter of fact, who saw the launch of Gemini 3.0? Even more hands. That's great to see, because that's what it's all about. It's all about innovation. And I think today you as leaders, you are actually being challenged to the fact that you need to innovate in your organization. But now this new reality kicks in with the question like, how will we adopt that new technology? Right? And that is super crucial. It is no longer an IT conversation, it's a boardroom conversation, because we have seen that AI is actually so disrupting that you need to adopt it in your organization. New technologies, they will come and they will go, but we see that today adoption is key. And I refer always in my speech to Martik's law. And Martik said, like, normally technology goes fast and normal businesses adapt that technology in a period of 4 to 5 years. Public sector a bit lagging behind. But now when we see the technology really moving exponentially high, you need to make sure as a business that you can cope with that new reality and make sure that you can bring this into your organization and create added value with these type of technologies. But then all of a sudden you see that the reality out there is like Europe, you need to pick up your game. The new innovation is more, let's say, US dominant, things coming from Asia Pacific. So how will we cope with that new reality here in Europe? Because we have great minds, we have great business, so how can we make sure that we keep track on all those elements? In that light, I think a key element is providing you as a business leader the choice, like where and how can I adapt that new technology by, of course, making sure that it stays in a very secure environment, but also in a sovereign environment. Yes, thank you. You probably heard my pitch already, but that's good. So Google went to the market already quite some years ago with the view like, what are our customers telling? Because it's all about you. We sat down with the European institution, we sat down with organizations like NATO and really understand like, if you going into cloud adoption, what are the key elements for you? One of the elements was, of course, full control over the data. That was a common theme that we saw across the board. Second was, we want to adopt innovation and not be struggling with like legislation that is preventing us to adopt that innovation. So that was a clear element. Third, we want to have choice. There's so much outside. Today, it's of course dominant US, but if we see the Mistrals of this world, new innovation popping up, and surely here also in Belgium with winter circus that we see and all kinds of good initiatives, how can we use that technology and of course stay into the rules and the laws what are out there. So how can we mix all those elements that we stay on track with what we want to deliver to our users and our communities? And in that sense, we said we need to also provide that choice to make sure that we build systems where different technologies can come together. So avoid any vendor lock-in and provide, let's say, the benefits for customers to start using that technology. And we pinned it out actually in 3 flavors. And you see them here on the screen. If everything goes right, yes, you see them. So first of all, of course, our Google Cloud platform is the most secure platform in the world. That's just factually, it's not a commercial discussion. We run our business in a different way, and we provide a lot of those managed services on our Google Cloud platform. But it's also obvious that you will not bring everything to the cloud. So it needs to, of course, work with a hybrid environment. In a multi-cloud environment, you need to run your workloads on-prem, you need to work to run certain workloads in the cloud. So that is where, of course, our cloud offering kicks in. That provides you all that flexibility, all that innovation going forward. But some of you needs additional controls. And so we truly listen to you, and that's where we blend in actually our Google Cloud Data Boundary solution. Now, Data Boundaries is actually our Google Cloud platform with additional controls. And so today it's, I think, quite obvious, but elements like external key management are no longer new. But 2-3 years ago, Google was actually leading that space to make sure that you actually have your encryption keys outside of the cloud. These are examples that we said you need to have that full control about your data, and you should not always trust and verify your cloud provider to manage those workloads. Key access justification, who has access to my data? How can I track? How can I limit? These elements we brought all together on our Google Cloud platform with those boundary and those additional controls. That is happening today, and our Google Cloud partners can provide these type of solutions to you. Now, for those customers that wants to take the next step, because of course we are still US based, right? We are not above the law. So we do also understand that there is something like the US and EU Data Act. We also understand that if governments want to see data, well, we can push back and we will push back, but in the end we need also to follow the law. So we said there is truly a need for a European cloud initiative. And we sat down with a multitude of strong local partners, and we said, how would you think if we bring Google Cloud capabilities and technology to you and actually operate it out of your own facilities with your own people under the jurisdiction of your own country? And there we have an example that we work together with Thales in France, because of course France was leading that way in the cloud, the confiance and that story. So we thought together with them, and what we brought is actually we joined forces, and that is called SANS these days. And that is truly embedding like a Google Cloud environment, but operated by French people under the jurisdiction, because it's actually a copy-paste of Google Cloud, which is running in their own data centers. That provides you, let's say, already a lot of elements to adhere to European law. And then for those specific use cases, we have even the ultimate element, which is a Google Cloud air-gapped solution. Now, air-gapped comes in many flavors, and I hear it in the industry, but Google Cloud air-gapped is truly unique in its kind. And I will explain you in 2 minutes why. And I don't want to steal the thunder of Joris, of course, but it's important, because we saw that there are different use cases. And again, you need to have that choice. If you have so sensitive data that you could never run it on a public cloud, you need to have ways to, at one hand, still have the innovation, but on the other hand, also have the choice to where do you run your data. And if you don't want to go to the public cloud, but you want to have all that innovation, then the Google Cloud air-gapped solution is really the way to go. right? And this is typically made for highly sensitive workloads, and you need to think about NATO type of solutions. And as you have followed a little bit the news, you have seen that we were successful with NATO to bring these type of technologies into their daily operations going forward. Now, it's not only for that type of data, it's not only for military use, but it's also to make sure that you following the policy in a certain country. And that was an example what we saw in Luxembourg. More on that one on that note. So Google Cloud Air-gapped, a super interesting solution. Thank you, because this is not really working. So you're my backup. Thank you. It's really to bring a full cloud experience like you would find in a normal cloud. So it's provisioning, it's taking your hardware, it's all managed service, it's API driven, but back into your data center with the technology which is open sourced, based on a stack which is also open for the market. So it's Cisco, it's HP behind it, to simply avoid that vendor lock-in. So this is not pure only Google. Google inspirations, Google innovations on that one, but actually usage in your own environment where you can run your workloads, your applications on top of this air-gapped environment. This is something really unique, because a few years ago, everybody in the industry said, hey, Google, what are you doing? You're bringing your technology back on premises to customers. And we said, yes, because that's what our customers want. They want to have choice. They want to run workloads in the public cloud. They want to run workloads with secured and controls, but also in an air-gapped element. And so we built this even before the Trump administration, even before the crisis that we saw in Ukraine. And we brought this to land, and we always operate with local strong partners. And to that extent, we found that local strong partner in Proximus and Clarence. And on that note, I want to give the word to you from a Clarence perspective. Thank you.
So about Clarence, some of you may wonder, what is Clarence? So Clarence is a joint venture that was created in 2023, so about 2 years ago, between LuxConnect and Proximus Luxembourg. So 2 years ago, we signed the partnership together with Google, and the Luxembourg government said, yeah, look, we're having sovereign or critical data or sensitive data, which we do not just want to share or put in a place where we're not sure we can control it, but at the same time, we want to do fancy things with this data. We want to have AI functionalities and others on this data. So we're looking for a solution that can help us. And that's where we said, okay, let's work together and build this Google Cloud solution. And so we are really the first organization that has such a solution operational since 1 year now. And we have a first customer with us running on that platform. So it is really an infrastructure based in Luxembourg that is fully air-gapped. So the infrastructure in these data centers is managed by Clarence. Only Clarence basically has access to the infrastructure itself, but the data on top is only the customer that has access. So it's really dedicated to the customer. They can be sure that the data that is there remains there. It's also not connected to any Google Management Cloud platform. We really get the software from Google. We verify the software, of course, for our customers, and we install and update the software as it comes. So it's not connected with any kind of public platform, which could potentially give other companies like Google access to the data. So they can't access it even if the government would force them to basically get the data. It's also hosted in 2 Tier 4 government data centers. So the fact that we are here providing a sovereign solution with a company where the majority stakeholder is the government is important, because obviously as a government and as a European company, you want to make sure that that company is not taken over by, for example, a US or a Chinese player, because otherwise, yeah, you lost your sovereignty. So the fact that we are a government-owned company is really important in that sense. The cloud and associated data are solely managed by the client. That's very important. So the client manages their data. They have the control. Also, we as Clarence, we do not access the data as such. It is built on Google technology. It can use the functionalities of that Google technology, but at the same time, it's also fit for other European technology. For example, Mistral, you'll hear some more about it later today. Mistral is one of the technologies you could, for example, also run on this platform, but also other kind of solutions, which are European software solutions, if you want to have a certain additional level of sovereignty there. And last, well, you have that data center with the solutions, but how do you still get access to that data center, and how do you transport data to the data center in a secure way, because it's very confidential information. Well, that's where Proximus complements it with quantum safe connectivity that we can provide between, for example, your location and that data center location. So it's good that I explain and Kurt explains what it is, but I think it's better to hear it from our first customer, from CSSF. So thank you for coming over, and please give us your view on this solution.
Yeah, well, technology doesn't work every time. So thank you very much for having us today. First and foremost, I think it's a question of pioneering. I have Gerard Hoffmann who's here. He's head of Proximus in Luxembourg, and he's been some advocate, or like Luxembourgers have known that in the past, to try and get innovation into our DNA. And this solution, Clarence, was a key element because of the sovereignty aspect. We have a Luxembourgish provider, a Luxembourgish infrastructure, and it's being run by people under Luxembourgish work contracts. Very critical for an infrastructure where we need to make sure that the data which is on there is kept confidential. So the CSSF, in 2 words, we are a regulator. We're the regulator of the financial sector. We in Luxembourg have basically 1,000 people working in that function. It's a bit bigger than what the Banque Nationale de Belgique is. That said, we have also a larger financial center in the fund industry. We supervise 10% of the workforce, which represents 35% of the GDP of the country, so we have a systemic role. And so when we chose to sign on last year, the 29th of November, as a first client, we also knew that we would also have to face the challenges on onboarding a technology project which is complex. The good news of this is obviously we know that there's a roadmap. The roadmap is going to allow us down the road to actually be beneficiary of all the whole data sets within the Google framework. And if we take Luxembourg, we also thought about innovation. We were, as a regulator, the first one to write something about outsourcing. So we said, how can actually a bank or an insurance company outsource their IT technology? And in Luxembourg, we have the PSF, the support label, which is now very much known through the DORA environment of regulation. So that's something where we also in Luxembourg were in kind of 20 years ahead of the market. If we take the example of Clarence, we created within the CSSF a charter of how people should actually utilize artificial intelligence within a very secret environment. We also set up a layer cake approach. So everything which is secret in terms of data sets is kept on the IT infrastructure, which is managed solemnly by the CSSF. And then for the confidential information, we go over to the Clarence environment. And for the information which is on the public sector, in public domain, we actually then go into the traditional hyperscaler environments. When we investigated the artificial intelligence use at the CSF, we first had something like 96 use cases. From those, we went down to 84. And we've kept basically now 62 use cases that we're going to put into place. So why is there a reduction? Well, 2 things. First and foremost, everybody wants to enable AI and everything. It doesn't work. Secondly, there is also a lot of redundancy within the use cases. And thirdly, the Google solution that we've got here in this case is going to cover 30% of those use cases. That's critical for us in terms of time to market. At the end of the day, a regulator like Luxembourg, we have to compete internationally. Ireland is one example, Singapore is another example, Hong Kong is the third example. So we have to be able to utilize technology in the transformation process. And that transformation process is to give actually time to market reduction, so productivity gain, at the same time increasing the quality of the reviews that we're doing vis-a-vis of the financial sector regulation, which is also increasing. So 19 of those use cases that we've been now prioritizing will come in on the platform in 2026. And obviously, it's an ongoing process. It's technology. All of you know it's not always going to go as quickly and smoothly as we expected. But that said, the cooperation that we've come about, and that was also one of the elements of choice, is to find the right people who are thinking about solutions and getting it to work. That said, we've come to realize also that we have to educate people. And that's the biggest issue that we're facing in such a project, is how do you actually get 1,000 people to address the use of artificial intelligence, but also the pitfalls of artificial intelligence. And so we are in a continuous process of trying to train up these people, and the platform itself is actually going to help us progressively through the use cases to channel people's education of how to utilize these different tools. The other aspect which is important is the models. We are utilizing, obviously, the Google-provided models, the LLMs, but we also want to be able to be independent. And that platform allows us to actually be independent in terms of what are the different models that we want to utilize. So in a nutshell, basically what I wanted to say is, it is a transformation process. It is complex. You have to do it. And like my managing director said the other day in front of Bloomberg, it's not that their banks were going to be replaced by robots, but it's the bankers who are not utilizing artificial intelligence which will be replaced by those who are using it. Thank you very much.
So, as a wrap-up, I think, thank you, Jean-Pierre. You mentioned a lot of elements because it's really in the core of your businesses and what you try to achieve in bringing added value to your internal users, but also to your external users and your customers. So I think, to summarize it, it is you need to have control without any compromise. I think that's clear. Innovation is key. That's where truly the added value lies, and you need to have an environment where you can thrive in terms of that innovation, and clearly set boundaries on how you want to do that. And of course, it's all, you mentioned it also, it's the people. We are still very much in a people business, and yes, there's a lot of optimization happening, but it's still finding same like the people that see innovation, that see the benefits of this, and bring that together in a safe, secure, and sovereign way. And I think, as mentioned, and it's also a very important element, air gap is one solution. It's not something that will fit all use cases, and that's also the reason why we build a platform, as I explained, that you can run your workloads on the public cloud, but move them up if you want to the dedicated cloud, and then move them up all the way up to the air gap cloud in a very consistent way, so that you only need to learn and of course share that information with your teams only once, right? Because it's already utterly complex. On that note, I want to thank you all. We still have room, and I think that's really interesting for us, for any questions that you might have in the room, because this session is all for you to really understand what is happening in that landscape. So I really invite you, don't be shy. This is a very safe room. It's a small and cozy room. So please reach out for questions. And I already see a hand. So the microphone will come to you. We will hear it all in our headsets. Please keep the mic as a really hugging. You don't need to knock anything, and off you go. Yeah.
Okay, hi. I have two questions. First question is, since Proximus also has an entity in the US, Teleperformance, if the US government wants, they can come after not only Google, they can also come after Proximus. You mentioned that the customer controls the data, but is there also a solution possible where Clarence or Proximus can have no access to data even if they are forced to? Is that technically feasible?
Yeah, so in the solution itself here, in principle, we cannot access the data. So we provide the platform, but the data itself, we cannot access it. And you're right, indeed, Proximus as a group has also activity in the US. Of course, from a legal perspective, it's different here. Here we talk about joint venture between Proximus Luxembourg and the Luxembourg government. Luxembourg government being 60% of the shareholder stake here. So in that sense, there is
that helps.
Yeah, that helps in terms of legal obligations towards US authorities, and really not having to share any kind of data, even if we could access it. But in principle, it's the access and the dedicated environment is from the customer, and they have that.
You say in principle, but
no, it is like that.
Practically, yeah. In the operating model, is that what we wanted? The operating model is you have to imagine you have the infrastructure, you have the tool set, but it is us, the client, who are actually driving the process. It is not Proximus, it is not Google. Doesn't mean that if we need technical competency that we cannot call back onto them. But at the end of the day, it's the CSSF who is driving the way we utilize the Google data, the Google software solution, but it is our data and they don't see anything on it. That was one of the key elements. We have to, because we have a secrecy clause vis-a-vis of the data sets that we get them from all the different banks and all the different funds, so we must make sure that that systemic role that we have is not abused and can't be abused through a provider like Proximus or Clarence.
Sure, okay, thanks. And the second question, it seems to be the most secure solution on the market of this kind, but it comes at a cost, of course. So can you give us some sense of, compared to just putting things on a Google Cloud platform versus this air gap solution, is it a factor of 2, is it a factor of 3, or what are we talking about?
It's sometimes difficult to compare exactly these amounts, and I would be refraining from saying exact numbers, because also it's a technology that is now installed 1 year ago. We had an agreement 2 years ago, and we also see that prices are going to fluctuate. It's with new technology, initially it's expensive, then it gets more and more adopted. So I would say I don't want to refrain any kind of budgetary things, but obviously it's more expensive than put it on a Google public cloud, without any doubt. There's a premium cost, but I wouldn't go into any details I would refrain from stating anything on that side. I don't know, Kurt, if you want to make any kind of statement.
It makes sense. It's always an element of trade-offs, and trade-offs also on price, right? As I mentioned, you have a lot of services that you can run on the public cloud. That's at scale. That infrastructure is available for a multitude of customers. So you can imagine that price point is way lower than if you go in something bespoke, personalized, and private. And that's really what we are delivering. So that's the balance where you're sitting in a price point.
But we can have a chat if you want later on and see if we can help you more details.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yep.
There's one there. If you could just pass on the dice.
Be gentle with throwing it. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Very interesting, and I think, unfortunately, I would say something which we really need. But okay, that's the way it is. I'm just wondering on the sovereign AI. I'm guessing it's not aimed to train models. It's more on doing the inferencing. But even there, you need GPUs or TPUs in the context of Google. How does that work? Is that something you provide as Google, or what's does the setup there?
So let me take that one if that's okay. So yes, of course. Typically how we see it, and that's why we built this consistency layer. You would do all your heavy lifting on GPUs in the public cloud, because there you have the availability and a price point which is more appealing than if you would buy your own set of GPUs. This being said, if we look at the air-gapped environment, we can actually have expansion units with GPUs dedicated onto that platform. So depending on the workload that we see with our customers, we can add additional GPUs coming in on that platform. It will be GPUs today, not TPUs yet, because we want to have, let's say, that no vendor lock-in type of approach. So that's the reason why we still run with GPUs, but we can have them as expansion units going forward, really depending on the use case and the usage of those customers that flag, like, hey, we're going to do a lot of AI workloads, we need more capacity on that one. And that is typically a call that the customer will do to Proximus and Clarence, and then we will make sure that we can have the delivery of those elements.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Next question. If no more, one in the front here?
Yeah, we have one in the front.
One last question maybe here in the front.
Go for it. Yeah. Nice.
Thank you.
Well thrown.
I mean, thank you. Very interesting, very important. Unfortunately, like the previous speaker said, one of the other trade-offs is the lack of continuous innovation, continuous development, which was a blessing from the cloud. So how do you try to address that?
Let me also take that one. So Google saw that this is not just a hype. This will stay because it's providing our customers choice. So what we have done, we brought our full engineering capabilities together that will always look at a version on the public cloud and how would that look like on this air-gapped cloud. So you can typically, and there will be some lag in terms of what we bring on the public cloud, but as also Mr. Faber mentioned, we will continue that same innovation that we typically bring on the public cloud, and then make sure that we tweak it to run on an air-gapped cloud. So that innovation is going hand in hand. And of course, again, there's a bit of lagging behind because there's a lot of re-engineering. You have to imagine that typically we run on a worldwide scale network. Now we have to bring it back into a box in a data center. So it's a huge effort from an engineering perspective. But one thing that we typically never give up is the innovation element, because that's our key unique differentiator from a Google perspective. So that innovation will follow. And as you already mentioned, AI workloads are already running on this platform, which is unique and which we see that competitors are struggling with to bring that level of innovation in these type of solutions. So that's definitely key, and that's the reason why Google is investing also in these type of solutions.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other question?
If not, I guess we will wrap it up here. So thank you for attending. I would say if you have any kind of sensitive data and technology is holding you back, well, today it shouldn't anymore. Talk to us and we can help you. We're here with booths, Google booths, as well as Clarence booths, so we'll be there all day. Feel free to come and join us and continue the conversation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Proximus Next. Tech Biz People.